So Terrence Crawford was just stripped of his WBC belt, and you might assume it's for failing a drug test or not being active enough as a champion, and you would be wrong. He got stripped of the prestigious WBC belt that he earned with his blood and sweat for not paying the sanctioning fees. Now let's just be honest about these sanctioning fees. If there's any one thing that's carried over from generation to generation, boxers don't like these fees, and they only pay them because they feel like they don't have a choice, right? Most boxers aren't making millions of dollars like Canelo Alvarez, so they don't really have the financial freedom to tell them to take their fees, and their belt for that matter, and shove it up their ass. These sanctioning bodies will have you believe that these fees are put in place to incentivize the boxer to be more active, so he's not just laying on a couch all day long eating Doritos. Now, of course, that's total bullshit, because there's no greater incentive than getting stripped of the championship belt. That these fees are somehow encouraging fighters to be more active when they might otherwise not be is just total bullshit. Because what's motivating these fighters are these belts and these big money fights. You have leverage when you have the belt, and most often you're coming into negotiations as the A-side when you have a belt. And Crawford didn't get stripped for not being active enough. His WBC championship status got taken away from not paying the fees. There's this interview floating around with Mauricio Suleiman, who is the president of the WBC, explaining how the fees are usually 3% of a fighter's purse, but they were kind enough to lower it to 0.6% because of how gigantic the purse actually was in the Canelo vs. Crawford fight, which equates to $300,000. And then he went on to justify the absurdity of that amount by acting like, well, he made $50 million, so what's $300K when we all know $300,000 is a life-changing amount of money to most people. And the way that the WBC has it set up makes it harder to criticize them because they have some sort of a boxer's pension or fund set up where a big chunk of that money goes into that, which helps other boxers. And for the WBC's sake, I hope they have their books in order because this is drawing a lot of attention, which could lead to their books being scrutinized, which is probably unlikely because boxing's corrupt as shit. Suleiman goes on to say that he's relieved that this happened, not exactly sure what that meant, and then shortly after, he posts this tweet praising Usyk being the ideal champion and whatnot. You know exactly what he's trying to do with it, insinuating that Crawford's a shitty champion. There's not a single boxer on this planet that is sympathizing with the WBC. But of course, most of them are too afraid to support Crawford publicly. But if they did, make no mistake, the WBC would be on the ropes. And the only leverage they would have left is prestige, which nobody seems to really give a fuck about anymore. And when you see shit like this, can you really say that you blame them? Especially when we've seen favoritism in the past to their cash cows like Canelo, who seemingly play by a different set of rules. But again, if the fighters stuck together on this, especially with that new boxing organization around the corner, the WBC would be forced to rethink things about monetization going forward. But that's just it. They have most boxers by the balls because they're not making fuck you money. Okay, so $200,000 of that money would go into some sort of a boxer's pension fund. Where does the other $100,000 go? Don't let them manipulate you into thinking that's not a lot of money because there's $50 million on the table or whatever. To somebody like Mauricio Suleiman, that's a lot of money. A guy that has a nice lifestyle that probably isn't getting any cheaper, a lifestyle that is dependent on these sanctioning fees. In any other sport, that just wouldn't be allowed. That would be a huge conflict of interest, but that's just it. It's not any other sport. It's corrupt-ass boxing. Now, if this would have happened to Canelo or Usyk, their entire country would be rallying behind them. Crawford's an American. He's my guy. Fuck these sanctioning fees.